Pokemon community is a wonderful thing, especially here at the London Corviknights, where we have members from all over the world with different backgrounds, different beliefs, and different favourite Pokemon. That's right, someone likes Wormadam.
Here, we believe that Pokemon VGC is for everyone, and this, in turn, might catch the attention of a certain type of person, one who finds fascination in not only playing Pokemon, but in the ways that all these different people approach the game that is Pokemon VGC. Really quickly, would you mind just telling me who you are, and then we can get things started?
Hello there. My name is Adam. I'm better known on Corviknights Discord as Rising Raichu.
This is Adam, a sociology student working on creating the first sociological study into the ways that we play VGC, and what it might say about the kinds of people attracted to, or at least good at, this game.
I have been playing VGC since 2022, played quite a few regionals. Why I'm on the podcast today, I'm actually doing my dissertation this coming year about VGC at Cambridge University, trying to produce what I hope will be the first academic study of VGC.
Adam is holding this study not only to hopefully speak to players with various experience and skill levels, but also to see if the way that we approach VGC can also be applied to society as a whole.
Trying to understand how players understand this incredibly complicated game and actually try to conceptualize what's going on with team building, battling, etc. The extent to which that relates to wider phenomena that we use to conceptualize society as a whole.
Whoa, wait a minute. Hang on.
What the hell is this guy on about?
VGC is an incredibly complicated game. The world around us is an incredibly complicated world. I think there could be some parallels there in terms of how we respond to those things that ultimately we cannot control, but there are so many incentives for us to need to try and master it.
Okay, let's dial things back a bit and let's first explain what Adam is actually talking about.
I'm basically going to be asking, first of all, some general questions about VGC and how people understand VGC, etc. Then we'll kind of go through the process of preparing for a tournament bit by bit. First of all, building your team, then testing your team, and then when you're actually battling, how people understand that process, the concepts that they think are most important in understanding that process and what they're trying to achieve there.
But we all know there's another aspect of VGC that we talk about quite a lot here.
We could go a bit more broad again, the general circuit and the community, and then how people see the relevance of all of this to real life.
But before we get into that, we might need to get our resident expert to first explain to us what sociology is and how it actually might connect to VGC.
Might give people a better idea of what it is that you're looking into. Is if you could describe, briefly what it is that sociology is and how you feel that sociology specifically relates to VGC as a game.
That's a difficult question for you to ask a sociologist.
Oh yeah, of course.
Broadly, I would define it as the study of human society. In this case, probably this is coming into this really emerging field of digital sociology, the new gaming technologies that have really been emerging recently. And I think academia is only now starting to get to grips with that. Sociological research often occurs through qualitative, open-ended interviews with people, trying to understand their point of view, how they see things, to the point that you can then try and generalize wider insights and models for how people are trying to understand things, if you get what I mean.
It was at this point I felt like I might be getting the idea of things. You want to see if there's a connection between the way that people look at the structure of the way they approach the game of VGC, which is in of itself quite a complex closed system, and then see if that has any relevance to them and the way they interact in social situations in life because of society and the construct of society.
Pretty much, yeah.
So what are some of the initial things that we can observe about people who play VGC? Some of you might already identify with a certain type of player. Do you feel that there's a difference between the approach of someone who just plays VGC and somebody who plays competitively in a circuit?
Yes, I think there's quite a few differences. optimization, fine-tune to the maximum possible extent everything on your team, all of your play, etc., to optimize your chances of being able to succeed in the battle, that occurs to a much greater extent among people who are actually really playing competitively in the circuit. Then you actually come to see like all of the tools you have available to you, the Pokemon, the moves, etc., almost more as tools to go about achieving the optimization. It's not so much like I want to build a team around my favorite Pokemon, etc. So this is actually one of the things I'm sort of going to be looking at.
Adam makes a really good point here about Pokemon being interpreted differently based on the type of player that's piloting them, right? Pokemon at its core is a game about catching creatures and using them to battle to win.
However, a big part of that process for many people is growing a bond with those creatures. This makes things complicated, as it adds a human element that interferes with the ways we might approach the game.
First of all, going to be doing a series of interviews with new players, generally who started playing in Scarlet and Violet. But then I'm also going to be doing some interviews with players who I would consider some of the top players in the world right now, hopefully. And I'm interested in comparing and contrasting how those players are conceptualizing the game differently. Like, all of that experience of being one of the best players in the world puts you in a very different position to someone who has started playing fairly recently and might not have that level of understanding.
Because of this divide of player type, we might be able to get a better idea of how top players think in relation to their approach.
But also to see how they do that with real life situations.
In a more competitive sense, do you feel that that might be, I suppose, hacking into a certain survival aspect of humans' ability to use VGC as a survival tactic rather than it being something that people do as a form of release within society?
Quite possibly. This is one of the oldest debates within sociology and about the extent to which humans are naturally self-interested and trying to survive and optimize things for their own interests, and the extent to which they cooperate and work with other people to achieve mutually beneficial outcomes.
Hearing this, you might be jumping to some conclusions about how competitive players are ruining the love of the game. And I can totally understand that.
After all, we're talking about a game. And I wouldn't blame someone to jump to the conclusion about how people have no connection to the Pokemon that they actually care about and just simply use the best ones as tools to win.
So, it seems that you could use this study to understand at what point a person transitions over from being motivated by playing with Pokemon they have a connection with to just constructing teams with the best resources possible.
I mean, after all, we see this all the time, right? People make this transition a lot. Look at content creators, musicians, artists as examples.
Making the change from creating just for fun and instead as a means of livelihood marks a transitional period in which we evolve our understanding and approach to something we enjoy holistically and instead become reliant on it as a means of survival, therefore changing the dynamic between us and the activity. This happens in many people's VGC journeys, and Adam's research hopes to tell us more about this. But there's an added layer to it he hopes to look into.
There's been a lot of economic-oriented sociology called rational choice theory that really tries to focus on how people make these bounded rational choices, looking at all of the different possibilities and trying to pick the option that will maximize their chances of success, whatever it means to them. Recently, this kind of branch has become very unpopular in academia. People have realized that its assumptions in a lot of cases are essentially wrong. A lot of the time, humans just don't work like that. At the same time, in VGC, a lot of the times people are consciously working like that. Because it's like, my optimal play, double into this Pokemon because it can't protect, that guarantees that I take a knockout whatever my opponent does, etc.
So this obviously comes with some complications, right? Because we have yet to understand whether decisions made within a match are conclusive to the kinds of decisions that we want to make in greater life.
Adam's research might not be able to answer that for us, but it's certain to be referenced in the future when looking into these subjects again, and it could have an impact on the way we look at video games within society as a whole.
This actually reminded us of the brilliant conversation that we had with KayDeeVGC. You could check out his amazing insight in the video above, and his team report in the description to the video about some of the decisions he had to make during a match.
People within a certain context being able to make different decisions. Within a VGC scenario, it's different. You do remind me of a conversation I had with KayDeeVGC about making a hard read.
Hard reads, at least in my eyes, is making plays that, if they pay off, they'll set you up to win pretty much immediately. But if they don't, you'll pretty much be on the back foot. Making those really hard reads, I've been practicing for a long time. Like, if you can analyze a player's playstyle and during the set, it can really help you make those reads a lot more comfortably. If I win the first game, I go really hard on the hard reads and then just try and win out from there, basically. You can make those reads on turn 1 and just immediately be so far ahead. The same.
How people, go about thinking about that process.
At this point, I wanted to weave in a little personal note. The other day, way after I was talking to Adam, I was watching a video by Michael Kelsch, a very popular and talented VGC player from Europe. In this video, he spoke about some of his personal reflections when it comes to the game. I'd never be able to give it a proper summary that does it justice, especially with the amount of personal touch he put onto the video. I'll leave that in the description as well, and I encourage you to all go and check it out. It gives some of his really unique and personal struggles as a top player, and I found it incredibly enlightening. Plus, it was really brave of Michael to come forward to talk about his experience, so please go and show him some support. During the video, Michael mentioned how he feels in the moment while playing, and this gave me something to think about.
Pressure is a thing that doesn't get to me anymore, which I also hate. Back in Bochum and Utrecht, I had this excitement. I was shaking when I played a win it in. I was nervous. You can see it in the finals. I just seemed super calm. When I am calm, I play way worse than when I'm nervous, you know? If I'm nervous, I play out of my mind. But when I'm not nervous at all, I play like a bot. This kind of thing translated to VGC.
A little bit of my background happens to clue me into a process that's going on here that is typically known as self-regulation. We experience varying degrees of regulation throughout our day-to-day lives. But one aspect that's usually associated with being deregulated is presented in difficulty to make complicated decisions, as being stressed limits our ability to analyse complex outcomes. This is usually why it's advised to stay calm in certain situations in order to make the best decisions. But for Michael, it seemed to be the opposite. Could this ability to make more informed decisions while under stress in a game of VGC be relative to the ways that we make decisions in the outside world? Who knows? But it looks like Adam's research might be helping us to answer that in the near future.
Speaking of Adam, let's go back and talk about some of the other things that he hopes to find out.
Were there any biases that you felt that you might have to take into consideration?
I was aware, obviously, that within the time frame and the scope that I have to do this study, effectively, I don't think there are any comprehensive academic studies of VGC out there right now. And so because I was going to be the first, I wanted to make sure that I did it justice. And so I want to make sure I am interviewing a diverse enough set of players that captures the immense diversity of this community.
Of course, with any study comes some challenges, and Adam is fully aware that he has some stake in it as well.
Obviously, I'm a VGC player myself. I have had certain experiences within the game, and I can't escape from that. One of the things I've been very conscious of was I'm going to be talking to people about quite sensitive, detailed information about how people play the game. I want to make sure that I can try and produce something objective and distance myself from my own position as a VGC player.
It would be great to see what some of you have thought about this so far. It can be difficult for us to study the things that we're most interested in sometimes, so it's important for us to have as many perspectives as possible. So please leave a comment and let us know what you think. Share this video with someone who might find it fascinating. Perhaps you're a student yourself looking to dive into digital sociology. This could be a great start on finding your place in the community. Join our Discord using the link in the description and subscribe to this channel, please.
Right, we're talking about survival. Let's talk about sociology. Let's address the copper Raja in the room, for crying out.
So speaking of positions in the community, I suppose, Do you believe that there might be certain jobs or career paths that people have taken that might seemingly feel unrelated, but might have an impact on their ability to play the game?
Quite possibly. I think there are certain like professions, etc., that tend to be overrepresented, like people who work in things related to computer science, maybe. Yeah, I think those professions can more involve like those kinds of ways of conceptualizing things that are more used in VGC. And I think there are some other factors, like the fact that you have to have quite a bit of free time and cash up front to be able to travel to Gdansk for a weekend for a regional.
Yeah, more of a social life aspect rather than a
important conversation, but that's not necessarily what I'm trying to on my research.
A different study will address that. I'm just saying there's room for the study. But back to Adam.
Consistent way to define new player, which is quite a murky category in an academic context. Because obviously there has been an explosion in the number of people playing the game competitively since the release of Scarlet and Violet, regionals have like doubled, trebled in size. Quite a lot of people started playing in Scarlet and Violet, probably more so than with any other generation.
As the London Corviknights was formed through the 2020 lockdown, many of our community members started playing the game primarily on the ladder, the only place to practice Pokemon in any official capacity at the time. This changed the way a lot of players approached the game, and the release of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet brought with it the reintroduction of the full-blown World Championship circuit that many players needed to adapt to.
So one of the things I am asking people about is like how they go about the process of testing a team. People have a lot of different ways they go about that. Some people we think of as like ladder warriors. You play loads of games on ladder to the point that all your matchups get worked out and you find all your optimal lines, whereas some players tend to adopt a much more targeted approach, etc. And I think people do think very differently when they go about those different strategies.
Listening to Adam talk about how people come together to work on their teams in different ways really made me think about how our community has formed. With no in-person events, online groups began to form and already existing ones became even bigger. Different players from all over the world were able to come together to build and help each other become better players, even without the grander purpose on the line like becoming the world champion. To those players, they might have just found comfort in the connections they formed with people they found who came together with mutual love of the game they played. So next time you think about competitive players always using the same 6 mons or how they don't care about the Pokemon they're using, maybe take a moment to think about the players these people have met along the way. In a great video by Justin Carris, link in the description, he talks about his personal struggles on his own journey through VGC and really highlights the impact that this social scene can have on a player and how it really is all about the connections we make along the way. Please check that out too, and I kindly extend the invitation for any of you to please talk more about your experiences in competitive Pokemon. I'd like to give a massive thank you to Adam, otherwise known as Rising Raichu, for taking the time to talk to me about his research. It honestly has been incredibly eye-opening. Please go and follow him on wherever you can find him.
So, obviously, I have started trying to schedule interviews with people, but I still need new players who are interested to come and get in touch with me. So, if you are interested in trying to be part of this study, feel free to react to my original message, which I can bump if need be, or get in touch with me on Discord. I'm Rising Raichu.
And please check out his research project if you fit the criteria.
In the unlikely event any of you need it, I have an academic email that you can use to get in touch. It's aw983@cam.ac.uk.
You could help contribute to some brilliant research used for years to come. I'm Barrett C9 of the London Corviknights, signing off.